Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to welcome you to this episode of the Sunflower Podcast, a podcast exploring all aspects of children's palliative care around the world. Today, we're going to do something a little bit different. It is December 2025. As we reach New Year's, we often think back about what the year has been. What have we accomplished? What have we done right? What could we have done better? And here, we often create what we call New Year's resolutions, where we hope to do things a little differently or a little better in the new year. But the way that I like to see it is that I look back on the year and think, what have we done well? What can we be grateful for? What are we proud of? What relationships have we built? Where have we been kind? All of the good things of the past year. And what do we hope to carry forward into the following year? So join me as we have an end of year review with a few of our Two Worlds leadership. Hi, Megan. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to chat with me.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. It's so wonderful to be on the podcast. And my name's Megan Doherty. I'm a pediatric palliative care clinician by background. I've done a lot of work clinically, and now I am working as a consultant. I'm based in Geneva, and I'm working as a consultant with the World Health Organization. And I'm also the director for pediatric palliative care with Two Worlds Cancer Collaboration.
So you have a very wide lens of perspective. So I'm excited to kind of hear, as you look back on 2025 and the state of maybe global pediatric palliative care, what are some of your reflections? What's gone well? Do you see opportunity for growth? Where are we headed?
Yeah, I think it's, I want to put it in the bigger perspective of global health and public health in the big picture sense. It has definitely not been the easiest or best year for global public health. It's been a challenging year at WHO for sure. But I'm really excited about what we see for pediatric palliative care, what we've experienced over the past year. There continues to be sustained growth, and we were able to maintain and grow despite all these challenges happening in the bigger world of global health. We've seen palliative care for children, I think, become more mainstream in global palliative care discussions, and palliative care as an area become more prevalent and more thought of in all the discussions we're having about global health. For example, in cancer care, this is a routine discussion that I have with my colleagues around the world when we're talking about how best to develop cancer programs in all areas of cancer. That this, always people say, oh, and we have to include palliative care. And it's been really exciting for me as I work in that global landscape with a lot of colleagues in cancer and in other non-communicable diseases to see how it's really part of the work that they're doing, and they're always thinking, how do we make this part of the work? And that tells me that they see the value of it. People and families have a better quality of life and also better able to be part of society and have the life that they want to have.
That's so encouraging, I think, to hear that there's actually a sustained growth. It's not just these little blips, because I think about the work that we do and trying to sensitize programs and, hey, this is what it is and this is how it can help. And maybe you see a little bit of pickup, but I don't have that perspective to see the sustained growth globally, which is really exciting to hear. Is there anything that you think we could do better when you look back?
I mean, I think we still have some really big unanswered questions in palliative care globally, particularly for children as well as for everybody. I would say that some of the questions are, how best do we integrate this into primary care and universal health coverage, right? That we are talking about that, but we haven't looked at the model for that and really tested it and contextualized it for every country and every place. There are some pockets of activity on that, and we see some examples, but we need to have more work on that. I also think that an area for more growth is thinking about how do we embed this into all the disease priority areas. So it's really easy for us as palliative care specialists to think very siloed about palliative care, that we think about this area and how we have to get more of it. But I always think of myself as kind of like, I've got to make sure this is spread across the whole health system. That when they think about NCD care, when they think about cervical cancer, when we think about multi drug resistant TB, that palliative care is part of that continuum of care for all these different areas. And that's hard because then you're just always that minor figure in somebody else's big picture.
Yeah,
But I think that's an area for us to continue to learn and grow in.
that's awesome. And then when you think about what's ahead in 2026, we were just at a sunflower meeting where we were talking about what are we hopeful for in the next year.
I'm so excited for where this can go. We have Sunflower, as an example, been creating this network and connecting people because people are at the heart of the care
Mhm.
and how to drive improvements in care. And so I think, really having that human and connection, relationship focused connection as part of the work that we're doing is so important. I think that's a strong foundation. Where do I see it going is that one of the words I've been reflecting on as the year comes to an end is visibility, and
Mm.
how important it is to showcase really good examples that are working well. The world's a huge place and there's so much going on. So I want to see more visibility of really good examples of programming that's going on. And with visibility goes scaling up, right?
Mhm.
How do we take really good examples of high quality palliative care for children that have been integrated across different settings in different places around the world? How do we make those more visible? And how do we operationalize them and scale them up? And how do we measure and know that we have some fidelity to the model, that the core elements are there, and that it's helping people? I think an area that is a gap is that idea of how do we measure a quality palliative care service? How
Mhm.
do we know that what we've delivered is really supporting families and effectively, improving quality of life and reducing suffering?
Yeah, and then I think if visibility increases, we have the potential to embed it into those bigger systems that you were just talking about because it's not just some little topic off the side of someone's desk anymore. It's more visible and therefore maybe more integrated into those bigger global public health systems and primary care. So that's exciting. Do you have any really good ideas of how we make things more visible?
There's so many ways, and it's a challenge, I think, to know where people are their eyes are these days. There's so much distraction and so much out there, but I think reaching people as academics and clinicians and specialists, we often think about like journal articles and conferences, but are we just reaching our audience who already knows what we're doing?
Yeah.
And so I've been challenging myself to think about other formats. This is a great format, a podcast in as a format for sharing information, posters, sessions, posting on professional sort of LinkedIn, those kind of platforms as maybe reaching a different audience.
Mhm.
But I also think that we need to engage more diverse audiences, with patients and families. And the way we reach them is very different from the way we reach clinicians or health system planners or policymakers. So understanding different groups and how we would reach them, I think, is really important. And that usually means talking to them and understanding their perspectives.
Yeah, and then the one topic that we've talked about so often on this podcast is the story behind the work we do. And like you said, it's about the humans and the stories. And so often one story can cascade and create a program based off of one person that knows about what's going on and wants to advocate for it. So we got to try and find those little nuggets and stories to share as well. Thank you so much for taking a couple minutes out of your very busy schedule to sit down with me. And I wish you the best for through the holidays and into the happy new year.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's an honor to be on the show with you today.
Hi, Simon. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to join me.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, so I'm Simon Sutcliffe. I'm a physician oncologist by background. I've practiced for 50 years as a medical and radiation oncologist in very academic tertiary cancer settings. For the last 15 years, I've actually spent my time in global health and global cancer control. I no longer practice as a physician, but I actually work with other people around how do you do the things that you would like to do? How do we enable being able to achieve what you want to achieve?
Fantastic. As a leader with Two Worlds Cancer Collaboration I've seen you do some incredible work in how we support our colleagues in South Asia in particular. I would love to just hear a little bit from you of what you have noticed, how we care for patients with cancer, and maybe how that has changed or adjusted how we might approach palliative care globally.
I think one of the biggest changes is the recognition that having cancer doesn't define you by a disease. You are actually defined by the person you are in the place that you live, by the community and the relationships that determine your life.
Mm-hmm.
When I started out in medicine, it was all about the disease. Now 50 years on, I think I would probably say, yes, the disease is important and you have to treat it, but a person's life is so much more than the disease. And you have to take into account all the societal aspects in which we live, the community in which we relate, the families that we have, the ambitions and expectations that we have that go far beyond the treatment of a cancer. And that's a philosophy I really embrace, because we still tend to think of patients as people walking in with cancer, as opposed to persons who have a life. And we're just happening to see a piece of that now with a person with cancer.
What ties into the approach of palliative care as well is how do we help those with serious illness live as well as they can? I'm curious if you have seen anything that is a highlight from 2025 in terms of the work that you have witnessed, maybe some of the work Two Worlds has done or that you've seen globally in all of your work.
In the various countries that we work in, I think the thing that really impresses one is one can make change and one can do it reasonably quickly. And we see it with the Sunflower Program. We see it with India and Gayatri in Hyderabad.
Mm-hmm.
You find a leader. The leader is personally ambitious. They want to see change. You enable them to do things that they can't necessarily do in their own setting. But when you relieve that problem and you allow them to do what they want to do, change happens, and it's good change.
Yeah, agreed. And it's been quite remarkable to me, I think, too, to see how fast things have been able to shift when there's been a couple of key people who are really passionate about doing this work.
Yes, yes.
Do you have any hopes for what you would like to see change in the coming year?
What I'd like to see is Two Worlds continue to grow the way it has grown. Now, I don't just necessarily mean more of the same. I actually mean grow and evolve the things you're doing in ways that you increase the depth or you increase the scale or you increase the scope. Your partners have the ability to do more if you can enable them to do more. And the challenge, I think, for Two Worlds is not whether you can do that. I don't think there's any limit actually on what we could do with the people that we have and the enthusiasm we have. The question is going to be, can you actually get the financial resources to support the activities you want to do? We've grown over 15 years. I think our volunteers would say we can do much more. We can be better partners to more people in more countries, etc. Can we get together the resources, the financial resources, to support that activity? We're the catalyst to cause change to happen.
And I think that comes back to your very first comment too, Simon, is that it also comes down to the stories and the people that we are serving in this work, the local providers that see these patients as human beings and whole people every day. And those stories, I think, are what bind us. And the analogy that fits for me is this woven threads that create a tapestry. And I think all of us just have one little piece of thread, but it really comes down to how are we reducing the suffering and helping each person, like you identified at the beginning, help these human beings, these whole people live as well as they can. And I think that's what we strive for every year. But I hold that hope with you, Simon, that we can keep growing depth, breadth, the scope.
10 years ago, Rachel, I recall conversations in India, in Hyderabad, with physicians, oncologists, and we were talking about pediatrics and pediatric cancer and palliative care. And the overwhelming sentiment in the room was, you're wasting money to spend it on a child with cancer because they're all going to die and you could spend the money better in another way. There is no truth, of course, in that statement. The answer is you can't make a better investment, actually, than putting it into a child with cancer. So if you have cancer as a child in India, you have a 80% chance of dying. In Canada, it's less than a 20% chance. How do you actually shrink that difference? And I think what we've seen in 10 years with Gayatri and with the Sunflower Program, the realization now, yes, there is nothing better that you can do than put money into caring for a child with cancer and giving them a life back. The worst thing you can say in those circumstances is there's no more treatment we can give, there's nothing more we can do, because there is so much more you can do.
Exactly. That's one of the things that I like to teach right out the gate when someone's new to this work is the statement of there's nothing more we can do does not need to exist here. There's always something we can do. It just depends on what the focus is.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes to sort of talk this through. It's coming to the end of the calendar year here in Canada, and I think it's always a good practice to look back and say, what did we do? And what are we hopeful for? What are we aiming for in the following year? So thank you so much. And I wish you a very happy new year, Simon.
Thank you very much, Rachel. I think we did good last year and we can do better. We can do more.
Hi, Jillian. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes out of your day to talk to me. And as people know, we're kind of doing a year in review. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yes, I shall. Thank you for inviting me, Rachel. I'm Jillian Files. I'm a retired adult palliative care physician in Kelowna, British Columbia, and I've been a director at the Two Worlds Cancer Collaboration for many years. And my particular area is as the director of the India programs.
Yes, and you are the one who got me connected to Two Worlds. For those that have followed my history as well, this is my mentor that has gotten me linked in with Two Worlds, and I got to build my palliative care experience with you. So
it's been fantastic having you involved.
So because you're so involved in Two Worlds and for so many years, and we look back, what are some of the highlights in Two Worlds work and in palliative care?
Oh, all right. Well, I can think of a number because a group of us traveled to India and Bhutan last November. And as ever, whenever we visit Dr. Palat and Mr. Jagannath and team in Hyderabad at the Pain Relief and Palliative Care Society and the Telangana program, I'm always just amazed how much more they've taken on in the year before or the year and a half before. It's just kind of boggling. And there's a very, very active program in Hyderabad and in the state of Telangana, in addition to all that everybody's seen on the websites and everything that we've published. Dr. Gayatri and your team were asked to train another 33 state teams in the government district medical college hospitals. And that's a very large number of people, and they have already trained and helped establish 33 palliative care programs throughout the state. So that was really remarkable. As well, within Hyderabad city itself, at the government cancer hospital there, a second tower is opened, and they've duplicated their palliative care outpatient department. So they've got 2 adult palliative care clinics running, and they've, as you know, Rachel, they've significantly expanded the pediatric palliative care teams, both at MNJ in the community and at Nilafur, the huge government children's hospital just down the street. So it's just amazing. As well, the Kurnool palliative care program, which is in Andhra Pradesh, has moved to the newly constructed Cancer Institute, and we visited the site when we were there, and they've added another nurse and another care aide, and a new doctor is being trained. So we're really excited about that and hopeful for further advances in Kurnool. And the Kurnool program is funded entirely by an anonymous donor.
Wow.
Yeah. I guess the other 2 things I think that were real highlights for the last year is the beginnings of some collaborations with our colleagues in Bhutan, and met with a number of stakeholders adult and pediatric palliative care people and WHO representatives, National Health Service representatives, and we're starting to make some links and explore if there's any way we can assist with some of their initiatives.
Well, that country also seems to have grabbed a hold of a desire for this and run with it.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount that has changed in the last couple of years for palliative care in Bhutan seems to also be exponential, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah. And the Sunflower Pediatric Program is very well represented there, and that you and Dr. Ayala are doing lots of work there and training a pediatric palliative care fellow. So the pediatric palliative care is really moving forward there, and we're hoping to perhaps assist with anything they would like with regard to adult palliative care. They have good links within Singapore. I think that the last thing, it would be the retreat that we had, where we brought together the volunteers to meet and to sort of look carefully and give a hard look at what we were doing, what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, what we wanted to expand. It was a very positive day and a half, because we've been thinking about succession planning for some years now, and many really excellent people from our volunteer cohort stepped forward and will be co-leading programs now and gradually taking over. And that was really heartening.
And I can imagine that that would be tough, as some of you in those director roles in leadership for so many years think about taking steps back, and what does it mean for the work of Two Worlds to continue. I thought it was a really productive retreat as well. I think it was so good to have so many people in the same room, dig deep into the conversations about what we wanted to focus on and continue to work towards.
And we had our colleagues from India present, some of our colleagues from India present, three of
Yeah.
and our Nepali colleagues couldn't actually end up making the trip, but they were there by Zoom, as well as other colleagues around the world. So that was really important. And Rachel, you're one of the people who stepped up into leadership positions. And it's good. You need renewal. You need new blood. It shouldn't be the same old people.
Yeah, but I also like the idea that there's continued work and collaboration together, right? So there's that work of bringing in new people, so to speak, into leadership, but then having you guys that have seen where this has come from. Like when we talk about the amount of growth in that India project, what you have seen since, well, 2010 or even before that, when you got started with this, like the growth has been exponential.
Yeah.
So it's also really good to make sure that we are mentored by some of you that have walked this whole journey of growth. You know, we don't want to be reinventing the wheel or whatnot, but it's good to have renewed energy for some of these things too, I think. But it does lead me to what the next question too is then. Speaking of transitions, what are you hopeful for 2026? What do you hope to see?
I'm certainly hopeful that the work in India will carry on. I don't have any doubt that Dr. Palat and her team, who are also bringing on new people, new leaders, will continue to really lead the way in India for palliative programs, both adult and peds. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do next. I think that what we would also like to help facilitate is expanding the Telangana rural program, that amazing 33 palliative care center program into all the rural areas of Telangana, into possibly other states. And we're sort of exploring that with Dr. Palat and her team as to whether there are other places in India that would be interested, because she really has the model and knows how to do this. So I'm hopeful about that. I'm hopeful that we can work with Bhutan if they wish us to. Also, I think I'm looking forward to you and the other people who are stepping up into co-leadership positions, talk about new ideas, different ways to do things. And I know this isn't a Sunflower pediatric program, but listening to Megan review the Sunflower program, I thought I kind of had a handle on what all you guys were doing, but I had no idea. It's incredible what that Sunflower group is doing around the world.
Yeah, and there's some really amazing people in leadership too with Sunflower and Dr. Megan and Spandana, who are really pushing this, and they're making the connections and the collaborations that help programs expand. Like you had your collaborative connection with Dr. Gayatri for so many years that supported her. And now she just is the center of excellence. And that is our hope for a lot of things that we're working towards too. And I think, Megan and Spandana have been experts in that making connections locally
Yes.
so that we have that collaboration.
Well, I'm looking forward to our next introductory palliative care echo session. And we've been running them for the Rohingya refugee camp healthcare staff for some years, and Megan have started that. But this time, we're going to do a joint session starting at the end of March for the Rohingya group and also for Nepal. And so we're combining our Nepali faculty with our Rohingya and international faculty to do a joint one, which I think will be really interesting.
Well, thank you so much for taking a couple minutes to chat with me. It's always good to hear different perspectives because everybody's kind of doing their piece of the work, and you put it all together and there's some amazing stuff happening to expand palliative care. I just listened to Megan talk about, this global perspective of how do we build and grow our palliative care as something that is essential for every country to take on. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Rachel. Thanks for asking me.
Hi, Camara. Thanks so much for taking the time to have a few minutes of conversation with me. And we're having a look back on 2025 as we get to the end of the year here. So can you just give us a really brief intro, who you are, what you do?
Well, my name's Camara, and I'm a nurse practitioner and a play therapist. And I've been working in pediatric palliative care for a number of decades, actually. My role for Two Worlds Cancer Collaboration and Sunflower Network is as a volunteer. I sit with the directors, but I'm also just a very active volunteer that teaches and mentors and learns along the way with the rest of the amazing people that are involved.
Well, thank you very much. And I know you're very involved in a lot of the aspects of project work with Sunflower. And so as you look back on 2025, what are some of the highlights for you? What went well? What was, some changes, maybe areas to work on or to focus on?
Well, we just finished examining our next batch of medical learners, our fellowship program. And it's just so rewarding to again see another group of people going through these, very strong pediatricians who are now able to practice pediatric palliative care and to grow their programs wherever they might be. That's very rewarding. We also are coming to the end of our leadership program this year, and I was fortunate to be able to work with 3 people from 3 different countries and very diverse projects. And one was from a psychologist in Pakistan and how she is bringing grief support into schools there. And so that was a big highlight. The other projects were also excellent. Our in-person visits, I think, are always such an amazing part of our work. A few people were able to go to Bhutan. I know you went to Bangladesh. I was in Nepal. And then there was a large group of us actually in the Philippines. And to feel the changes within the programs, to see that more children are being seen, more families are being supported. I look forward to having those opportunities to see the growth that's happening, to encourage people and to grow together with all of those groups of people.
Yeah, that's so encouraging to see where some of our previous batch of fellows have come from and where they're headed as well. And that instills quite a bit of hope for this new batch that you've just finished testing and sending on their way. So it's always encouraging to see these programs also empower people that are doing the work in these countries and they're keen to expand and keen to improve pediatric palliative care. And we get to just see them expand their programs. And like you said, it's so good to hear that more and more children around the world are getting access to this. And that's our number one goal. So then when you think about 2026, I always like to reflect on the year past, but then look ahead to the year ahead of us. What are you hopeful for? What do you think are things that we should focus on or areas to improve on, maybe?
Well, I think at the ICPCN conference in Philippines, it's still very clear that we have a lot of work to do. And there's children across the world, even within our own country, as you know, depending where you live, the access to pediatric palliative care or expert pediatric palliative care can be lacking. And so I think there's a number of things I'm looking forward to. I think where Sunflower really wants to focus on, I think, is we've got some really good people across South Asia that are doing the work. But how do we really get spread? And not spread just by, we have another clinic here, another clinic there, but spread that goes deep and goes far. And when I say deep, it's that depth of expertise, but also depth of service. And so working with people on the ground who are in those countries and to say, how do we support you? How do we get the resources? For sure, funding's an issue, but also the manpower and the knowledge around, this work and how we do that. And I think there's lots of ways we do that. We can focus on healthcare providers, but we also have to look at the community who needs to and wants to be involved with caring for children with complex needs. So I think spread is something I really think about. And I think collaboration is the other word, I think, for 2026. I was recently at a global talk, and there was an African proverb that said, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I often think about, if we go together, we have to collaborate, we have to communicate, we have to be humble in what we think should happen, because other people's ideas need a place in that as well. So spread and collaboration are things that I'm really looking forward to. I get to go to India in February, and so I'm really looking forward to seeing the leadership people that are graduating and just reconnecting and collaborating, as I've said, with people there. And then I like to also be up for any surprises. We have our plans in place and we have our things, as you know, and then there's these requests because our partners are ready for something that we maybe didn't think of. And so I'm also up for surprises in 2026 too.
I like that. I think that's a great way to close this, in that there's lots of ongoing work and growing the work that we already do. And then there's the joy of a surprise. I'm very much looking forward to surprises of 2026. So thank you very much again for just taking a couple of minutes and sharing your thoughts. And I wish you happy New Year and holidays, and look forward to seeing all the things that, of course, you'll have your fingers on in the work in 2026.
Always great to collaborate with you. Take care.
Thank you to all my guests and leaders at Two Worlds Cancer Collaboration for taking a few minutes to talk about a year in review as they reflect on what 2025 was in the world of palliative care. And thank you to all of our listeners globally for taking an interest in the work that we do. We are so honored and excited about the work that might be ahead in 2026. So for all of you celebrating on a Gregorian calendar, Happy New Year. And we look forward to many more podcast episodes and conversations in the wonderful world of pediatric palliative care. The Sunflower Children's Network is an initiative of Two Worlds Cancer Collaboration, which focuses on children's palliative care. We hope to build a world where no child suffers from serious health-related suffering. To learn more or to donate, please visit twoworldscancer.ca.